I'm coming.
Horror is a difficult genre to perfect. It always seems like there's too many hidden dimensions to it that you can't always predict how the audience is gonna respond. I've seen movies with great sound designs fall short because of a lazy script, and scary stories with weird acting choices.
I know where the bastard sleeps.
But sometimes a story comes around that has all the right elements bouncing off of each other to create an immersive, horrifying experience. Well, if you are the storyteller, that is exactly what you want. Take for instance this scene from Poltergeist. You have the character slipping and falling into a muddy pool. The choice of sound design is perfect here. The lighting also quite good. And later, as the actress finds herself surrounded by these skeletons, it only adds to the tension. But as per usual, she is rescued and the scene does go on. But I guess it would have been just another great horror sequence if you didn't know about the hidden dimension here. If you didn't know that these skeletons were actually real. The moment you learn that extra bit of information, it changes a hell of a lot here. Pretty much everything about this scene, heck, pretty much everything about the movie itself is now viewed through a different perspective. And this was not a deliberate choice by any means. It's not like this was written into the script. This was standard practice back in the day. If you saw a skeleton pop up on the screen in an old movie, about half the time, it probably was real. You see, making one of these things used to be expensive, and weirdly enough, significantly more expensive than getting the real thing from a medical facility. And so, when the movie got announced and the production rolled out, this was probably business as usual. As part of a lawsuit, not many years later, when the special effects makeup artist Craig Reardon testified under oath, he said, "I acquired a number of actual biological surgical skeletons is what they're called. They're for hanging in classrooms in study. These are actual skeletons from people. I think the bones are acquired from India. But at any rate, we got 13 of these and we dressed them so that they look not like bleached, clean, bolted together skeletons, but instead disintegrating cadavers. And, added sculpture, rubber and things to them so that they would have a kind of dramatic, leering, spooky aspect and not be dull. But I'm trying to say clinical type corpses, And as you can imagine, this was not a fun thing to do. In fact, the people who knew about it on the set, they were clearly uneasy. But I guess it brings us back to this scene. Sure, there were people who knew about it behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, the people who needed to know, well, they were the ones who were kept in the dark. As JoBeth Williams, the one who acted with the skeletons, said in an interview,
because when I first read the script, I kind of went, oh yeah, okay. Well then it was days and days in the mud. And I thought that the skeletons were props. I thought they were made by the prop department, but I found out some years later that they were actually real skeletons. And I thought, if I had known that, I don't know if I could have gotten into that mess.
Imagine interacting with the skeletons day in and day out, only to be told they were real years later. That will probably stay with you forever. But in a weird kind of way, that sense of creepiness sort of stuck with the movie. Good fictional stories, especially in the realm of horror, are all about the suspension of disbelief. You don't really care about the logic as long as you're consistent with the storytelling. But the moment you associate the plot with a real-life element, it breaks that fictional barrier, not to take away your emotion, but rather to pull you in even further. You see, there's something so visceral about horror that's based on true stories. Every time you watch a scene that has an element of truth in it, it gives you a reason to think. You know that somewhere, sometime, an event vaguely similar, no matter how creatively modified it is, it did happen, and that is a hidden dimension. Stories based on truth are more or less conceived as documentaries in the mind. It can evoke fear that is based on survival rather than a controlled sense of adrenaline rush. It's almost like when the fictional barrier gets broken, you perceive the visuals through a healthy dose of caution. And filmmakers have often used this as a tool to accentuate the horror. The Lighthouse is a weird psychological thriller that focuses on things like isolation. But the moment you realize it was loosely based on a true story, it makes you think. The hidden dimension here is the knowledge that something similar had already happened in such a place. And in essence, this is what elevates the horror of this scene. Sure, real-life skeletons were used on the regular ever since the beginning of horror, but not like this. Not to the level that you're seeing here. In a scene that lasts 2.5 minutes, Diane is fully immersed in this pool of mud, a sequence that was filmed over 4 to 5 days, which JoBeth Williams found to be scary to begin with.
One of my fears is electricity and water. And so I would see these huge fans and these huge lights, and it would make me very scared to get into the water, because I thought, well, what if one fell in, somebody bumped into it accidentally, because there's, a million crew members around.
And now you add in the component of the skeletons. There is no escaping the horror. In fact, there is no element of fiction here, coming straight from the actress herself. Now that you know the secret, there is no way you can experience this scene without getting creeped out by it. And when the secret got out, people didn't care whether or not it was based on a true story. But the horror was completely focused on this one fact: they used real skeletons. And later on, it would get so weird in the sequels that people considered the whole franchise to be cursed.
On and out, there was camera jams. The film was somehow I don't know what it was doing, but it was blanking out when they were processing it.
The first day we shot footage, the footage didn't turn out at all. It was black. And
the studio was really happy about that.
Well, it doesn't really help the producers to prove otherwise when 2 of the actors in the movie would later on die untimely deaths. The curse of Poltergeist seemed well and truly real, and naturally many people would attribute it to the use of these real human remains. And well, can you really blame them? But set aside the unfortunate events that haunted the franchise of Poltergeist, to leave your supernatural hat behind on the desk and analyze what this one scene did for the whole franchise. Sure, the whole movie is an incredible work of horror that stands the test of time, but to this day, people point to this one scene. It was almost like a marketing technique that was, well, completely unintentional. The shot that makes Poltergeist recognizable is perhaps this one, where Carol Ann is staring at the television as she hears voices from the other world. It is iconic in the world of horror. But the thing that gets people talking, the word-of-mouth marketing shot as you would call it, is undoubtedly the one with the skeletons. And now that you know, if you didn't, have fun watching Poltergeist.